Hey guys, my name is Roberta Peel. I am back with part 2 of hinging your pieces together. Alright, so in the last video we went ahead and soldered the pieces on. There was at one point in time where I had tried to, when I was going into solder, that I didn't take away the other plate. Just make sure that you take away that other plate. Just very gently remove it as you go to solder them on. Another thing too, I just spoke with Brad Smith. And many of you guys know him from his bench tips. He has quite a few really good books out to help you guys out. Anyhow, one of the things that he had said is it's usually a good idea to make the outside hinges about a quarter the size of the center pin, since it's the one that takes all the weight anyways. And it is a really good point, so that is something that I didn't do this time. In the past I've made my hinges like that, but for this one right here I just figured it was easier to cut 3 even size hinges. So when you guys do cut your hinges or your little heavy walled tubing, this is 2.5 diameter heavy walled tubing, you want to make sure that the outer pins are about a quarter the size of the inner pin. So make the inner pin a little bit longer than I did on this one. So as you can see, I've already got a couple of these done. And I'm going to show you how I rivet my pieces on. Okay? It's not too terribly hard. In fact, let me make sure, because I do have a little bit of an order here. I need to make sure that, here it is. Alright, so that one goes there. That one goes there. And these ones will go here. Okay. So anyhow, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with a piece of wire, okay? And all I did is I took and put it in the end of a drill and then stuck it in a vise, or you can use a pair of pliers, whatever floats your boat, and twist it very, very slowly. And what that does is that actually hardens your wire, okay? Now the next thing that I'm going to do is just go ahead, let me zoom in just a little bit so you can see. There we go. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is make sure that the end of my wire has been flush cut. Just take a little bit of it off here. And when you select the wire that you're going to use, make sure that it fits in nice and snug inside of your tube, okay? Now as you can see, I'm not leaving a whole lot into the top, okay? Because all we're going to do is flatten it out just a little bit. So just under 1 millimeter. Oh, there you are. So just under 1 millimeter we'll do it. And I usually give it just a little bit extra so that I can go ahead and file, because we're going to want to file these down next. And then I'll take my flush cutters again and snip off the excess. Alright, let me make sure you guys can see. Okay, so now the next thing that I'm going to do is go ahead and take my file. I'm going to set the bottom of the hinge pins down on the edge of my bench block, and then just file that off. Just give it a few swipes, make sure it's nice and flat. And then flip it over. Do the same thing, because anytime, even if you're using a flush cutter, it's still going to leave a rough edge, and you don't really want that right now. Okay. Now my husband says that when I use a hammer I strike like lightning. I never hit the same spot twice, and he might not be wrong. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to go ahead and set my piece down, same as I had it when I was filing, okay? And then I'll use my riveting hammer. And I've got both of my arms braced on the desk so I don't hit my piece, but I probably will anyways because, well, that's just what I do. I'm going to very, very lightly tap it, and then open it up and do it again. This is just a little riveting hammer. Just going to flatten it that way. Open it up, and I'm not hitting hard. Okay, these are really extremely light strikes. Now every now and then, particularly on the inside, what you're going to see is that right about here, you're going to find that it's not really going to want to push down. Don't worry too much about it because you can just file it down later. But if you can find a way to maneuver that to the outside so that you can flatten it, it's definitely best. Alright, so just a few light taps and then we're going to flip it over, set it down on the bench block and do it again. Doesn't take a lot of force. This teeny tiny little no-ounce hammer will definitely do the job, so don't you worry about that. Just try not to hit your piece like I'm doing. And flip it over, check the other side. And I just kind of go back and forth on both sides. It is pretty delicate work, but it's worth it when you're done. Then just kind of check it and make sure that you got as much of it hammered flat as you can. Okay, now what I'm going to do is use my file again and just kind of clean it up a little bit. You don't want to take off too much. You just want to make sure that it's flush on the outside edges. You notice that I open and close my hinges and I have my little finger right in the inside of it. It doesn't take very much to hold these in. I'm just kind of rounding it off a little bit. I'm not putting on a whole lot of pressure. And then you can go through with a fine silicone wheel, which I actually have ready. This is just how I clean up the inside. Take a fine silicone wheel and give it a little bit of a light polish. Make sure there's no furs on the outside. And there you go. That's it. Okay? It's as easy as that. And then when I get done, when I get all of my pieces hinged on, I'll do the other side, the other half of this bracelet. I'll go ahead and hinge those, and then I'll hinge them together onto the middle one. I don't know why, it's just my system. But when it comes to setting the stones, when I'm ready for it, I'm going to use a sandbag, okay? And then I'll just take the little stones, obviously, because these have been worked an awful lot. I'll have to pull the bezels out a little bit. And then I'll just go ahead and pop my stones in and then use the sandbag. That way it doesn't put a lot of weight on the hinges or anything like that, because it kind of forms to your piece as you're setting it. And then I'll use the sandbag to finish setting these stones. And then it'll be done. That's it. So, oh, you can't see that, can you? Ta-da! There we go. Alright, so what I'll do is as I said, I'll just go ahead and put it on a sandbag, and then I'll set my stones on the sandbag to try and keep the weight or the hinges from pushing up, because if you use a really hard flat surface, your hinges will get deformed. They can anyways, unless you're really good. So anyhow, These are going to go, they're going to have turquoise set into them. And if you guys have any questions or suggestions, let me know. Again, like with what Brad Smith said about my last video, he's right. I hadn't really thought too much about it with this particular piece. But yeah, definitely make the center hinges, or the center hinges longer, and then just, you know, some smaller ones on the outside. I don't really think it's going to have too much of an effect. This is such a big piece anyways, but for overall long-term use and wear, he did ask me to bring that up to you guys, and he's not wrong. He usually isn't, if you guys know anything about Brad Smith. So that is Hinges. I hope you guys have fun. I hope you enjoy it, and if you have any questions or suggestions, let me know. And take care. Bye.